Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Harika. So, I hope you all are doing great. I wanted to narrate a new concept in this particular video. So, if at all you have watched my previous videos on UiPath apps and UiPath VB apps, then for sure you will be the one who can utilize this concept to the fullest. So now VB apps or the legacy apps, and also we have come up with a new one which is called as unified apps, right? So all the previous versions may soon get deprecated, and before getting deprecated also, if we find the potential of the unified apps, we for sure will not look back to them. Right. So I'm so confident, and I'm telling this with the equal, enthusiasm as how excited you are, because, this concept is very, very new. And also, it's going to solve a lot of problems that we had while working with VB apps. So now I am going to explain you that particular concept, but before to that, I wanted to just help you understand the use case that we are going to drive in this particular series. Okay, so first of all, let me take you to that particular page. So if you see here, earlier when we are going to develop apps, we are going to go to the product called apps from the orchestrator, right? But we are not going to develop the unified apps from there. But however, we have to go to the studio web. Okay. So I am here in the studio web. Okay. So here, if you wanted to create a new app, then you have to go to create new, and you can create the new project called app over here. Okay, so this is how you can create. I will narrate and show you something which I've already created. I will give you the overview first in this particular video before I drive the use case. Okay, so first I will take you through this app which I've already created. Okay. Let me reload it. Says the server is down. So I wanted to just open up this project from here. Let me go back and reload that project right from the beginning. I will just show you how you can see the user interface basically, because each and everything that we are going to see over here is something an upgrade from the VB apps, and it will also be pretty useful for all of you. So let me just click on the app again. Okay, it is still loading. Let me do one thing. I will maybe meanwhile I will create something new in order to showcase you. Okay, there is some issue. You can probably fast forward this one, okay, to eliminate this issues to see where we can actually start it from, okay? So I'm gonna click on app. I think connections to app server is lost. I think maybe the app server is down, I believe. But yes, it's loading. Yeah, perfect. So now what I'm going to showcase is, so let's say for example, this is how your app interface also looks like. Like let's say you wanted to start it from the app, you wanted to build an app, right? So it will show you the template if you want to go ahead with the template, or if you want to go with the blank page, right? So let's choose the template, and then the template will be shown on your designer panel. So this is like an interface which combines both your studio as well as your app. Okay, so you can see, let's say if you see here, this is your explorer, right? So in your apps you will have an explorer like this, which will show you the complete elements that are there within your app, right? So let's say you have your text box, you have your let's say this is your text box, right? You have your text box, you have your buttons, everything that can be shown over here. So all the explorer window is towards to the left. So if you see, this is your explorer window. So you can ask me, let's say if I wanted to add a new control, how can I get it? So if you see here, you can see the controls, right? So you can just go over here, and or else you can switch to this one. This is a toolbox. This will have the access to all the controls that you usually see in your app page. Okay, so this is where the all the controls will be sitting in. Okay, and let's say for example earlier in the app we used to add our um data surveys, we used to add queues and all of that, right? So how can I add all those? You can have a question, right? So I will show you that one as well shortly. Okay, let me, okay. And now you can see here there is something called as version history, right? So what does this mean? Let's say you are publishing a version of it, so you can see which version you are currently and when was the last change that has done on the current version, right? So all of these things you can see over here. Okay, and then so similar to your project settings, how we will be having in our um VB app, similar to that, we have the accesses and everything over here. We can assign roles. We'll talk more about that in the next videos, because this is not about the access or management. So basically, I wanted to give you the interface, how does it looks and how that it functions and everything. Okay. So now coming to this particular text box. So let's say this is something which we've already seen, right? So this is kind of similar, but there is something that I wanted to show you. Okay, so if you see over here, this is a text box, right? So in VB apps also we have the similar thing. We have the general, we have the events, and we have the style, which we will be calling it as a properties panel, right? So for every control we have the properties, specific properties panel, right? But now the difference that we are going to see with the unified apps is, once after you click on the events, if you remember, we have to define the event over here, right? So let's say for example, on entering the value, on user entering the value, what needs to happen, what event needs to trigger, right? But here if you see, it's not a um, trigger basically, or it's not an event basically, it is a workflow. You can actually run a workflow, you can define a workflow. So what happens is, as soon as you define this, the workflow will run. You don't have to actually wait for a robot to pick it up and run. The workflow will run on the go, right? And then it's gonna give you the result. You don't have to really wait for longer and longer times, right? So if you see, this is much more easier and comfortable option when it comes to unified apps. You can actually build the workflow within your app. You don't have to build it in the studio, or you don't have to publish it, you don't have to link that all the details, right? So if you remember, in the VB apps, whatever the processes or whatever the XAMLs that we are using in case of triggering a particular workflow, with the triggering workflow we still had some benefit with the real time communication. Like we can trigger the automation, which will take only for the first time, like the latency will be there for establishing the connection. But however, from the second time onwards, as the connection is already established, it will just trigger that particular workflow. But however, in the unified apps we won't have that latency at all, because you are having the workflow within the app. So the app's gonna actually run the automation or the workflow with so much ease, right? So let's see how you can actually do that. I'm going to show that one as well. And then the styling component remains the same, so we know that how we can style it, so it still remains the same. And the next wonderful thing here is, if you have already worked on the VB apps, you for sure realize how difficult it is to troubleshoot. right? So let's say to debug or to troubleshoot, it's not so easy. We never used to know how the values are transferring between one activity to another activity. We just have to rely on the logs that are coming up in our backend, right? But however, here, if you see, whenever you're running the automation, so let me just show you that one as well, with the existing one. So if you existing app, okay, so if you see here, once after you run the automation, whatever the output, the logs are there, everything will be shown here. I'll show you shortly by executing that. And also the beautiful thing is we have the watch panel, just like how we have the watch panel in our studio, right? Similar to that, we will have the watch panel over here, right? So now I will also show you the other thing. Okay. Let me go back and I will execute the app that I already have. I hope it will be not having any issue at the moment. Let's see. If it loads, I can run this and can show this to you by just. Yes, perfect. So now it has open up, right? So now I will just show you. Okay. Okay, perfect. And also what is the other thing? Yeah, if you see here, okay, on submission. So basically, I'll just give you an overview of this particular app, and this is what we are going to develop in our next video. I will show you right from the beginning, like where how we can actually build this whole thing right from the scratch. Okay. So now if you see here, I'm just creating small employee database where the app will be coming up like this, where the user can enter the name, ID, location, and then upload some file. The file should have only 10 records. So imagine the days when, at least for a smaller validation, we have to actually run the studio process, right? Yes, here also we are running the process, but however, the validation is running on the studio web, right, on the app itself. We don't have to create it somewhere and get it over here to link and all of that. So now we will see how quickly this can be done and how easily we can validate it with not much of latency. So I'll first show you on how we can check this. So as I was telling you, we can check all the logs over here, so the logs will be seen. Okay, so and then I will also open the app parallelly. So if you see, it's showing all the apps, all the logs, sorry. So now the app is loading and it's going to show me all the details that I can fill in on the app. Okay, so now I'm going to fill in the employee name, ID, location, and let's say, for example, I wanted to give a file which has 10 records. So let's say I have two files with 10 rows and 11 rows. So, but now if I give the 10 rows, it's a successful scenario. But if I give 11 rows, it is a exceptional scenario. Okay. So I'm going to give 11 rows and then I'm going to click on the submit. So now if you see here, okay, here is a pause button. I'll explain about that later. But if you see, it's an error. Please upload file with only 10 records. So if you see, now we have eliminated a lot of steps. Earlier, when this happens, we have to first keep all these records into our database. We have to wait for the process to run, and then we have to notify the user with an email or something. Only then we will be able to take a decision only after running the studio process. Correct? But now, however, here we did not even add these details into our storage bucket. We did not even raise a request. We did not even raise a ticket. Or we did not, we told the user on the spot that this is not a valid one. Right. So now let's say the user realizes that okay, this has 11 rows, and then I'm gonna upload only the 10 rows record, and then I'm gonna submit. Then I'll talk about this breakpoint and all later. Then now it's a success. Thank you for submitting the request. It's a successful scenario and the user has submitted all the information and it will be there in our data service. So let me show the data service as well. So here is okay. So if you see, it has executed the form. Okay, and now I'm also going to talk about the breakpoints. Okay, so if you see here, okay, and also about the watch panels. So we have the debugging concept as well over here. Okay, I'm gonna stop the current job. So, okay. Okay, fine. So now if you see here in the watch panel, we can actually check the count of this. So let's say what I have done over here is once after the user uploads this, right? So let me just show you the workflow also to you so you will be able to understand. So once the file is added, I am having a bunch of activities that I'm doing over here. Okay, so I believe I am doing it in the button level. Okay, because the function is over here. Okay. Okay, so here is my bunch of activities. I will also show you how you can actually utilize the breakpoint concept as well. So if you see, once after I come to this place, there is one more panel that has come in. What is this? Data manager. So this is the one that I was talking about, how you can handle your entities, queues, and everything. Because when you're talking in the app perspective, when you're talking with regards to app, all these things were not there, but they have come into picture as soon as you switch to the workflow part, right? So here you can see there are entities. There are two entities which I am sorry, there is one entity which I am using, which is employee database. So let's say if I wanted to see this in data service, I'll just show you how this looks like. By the time it loads, I'm going to show you this workflow. Okay, so what I'm doing a validation. So if you see here, I have kept a breakpoint here. It's quite simple, it's not a complicated one. So just we can add breakpoint, that's it. Okay, so when you add the breakpoint, you will be able to see how the flow works. So you can stop the workflow here. It will be pausing, the workflow will be pausing, and then you will be able to see the value that's coming over here. Okay, so now in the next video, which I'm going to drive this complete use case, I'm going to show you how we have done this. So in that use case, I'm going to show you how you will be able to see these values in the watch panel. Okay, so if you see, I have created all these values. I have checked while the execution is happening, right, in order to understand what's passing through these values, right? So I'm going to show you that one as well in our next video. Okay, fine. So these are the different panels, windows, explorers, or maybe the basically the UI, how this is looking like the publishing and all. By end of the last session, we will be able to publish, and we will be able to see how this will be published and deployed. So that is not too much challenging, that's quite easy, and you can get it done if you understand all this whole concept, the main concepts. But however, this is the new UI and the unified apps concepts, where you can actually club your app and develop your app and studio process both in the same place, which is your studio web. And these are the different panels that you have: explorer panel, toolbox, and the version control. Then you have properties panel, you have all of these different panels, and it definitely going to make a lot of difference. And not just that, I also wanted to show you one more thing. If at all you are struggling with the data service for storing this data, going forward you don't have to rely on the data service, you can directly integrate with your database. You can connect to your database, you can directly push this data to your database, you can fetch easily from your database, just like how we do in your studio, right? So this is a very powerful feature that UiPath has brought in through unified apps. So I hope this will be really helpful. So in the next videos, we will be talking and seeing more and more use cases on the unified apps. And as I've shown, this will be our first use case which I am going to explain you. Okay, so we are in the data service, right? So let me just show you. So this is an entry that we have just done, right? 11 6. So this is the one, 8 18, right? So this is the one we have entered after a successful scenario, right? So this is something which you are also going to which you are also going to develop in the next video. So I hope you found this pretty useful. If so, please do consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.